Something with Ryan behind the scenes. We're trying to get him on. Hopefully, he comes on soon. Hopefully, all is well. With that said, it's going to feel different than the normal show. Normally, the back and forth that we have. Normally, Ryan's mind and my mind, even though we're on the same pages, sometimes we come at things from different angles, so it provides a little different feel and a little different view. But I'm gonna do my thing here, and we're gonna have a good time. So on the show today, biggest thing that's going on around the world today is the Epstein files. This is not over. The Epstein files is not over, and it is not going away. And the more the Trump administration tries to play this off as a Democrat hoax, because this is the slogan we've heard over and over and over again from President Trump, which is weird because he was the one who kind of he pushed the snowball down the mountain. He was the one who got this ball rolling. He was the one, when he was running for office, pushing for the Epstein file release. Why so different now? Why when he's elected, now a release has come out that the people pushing for the release of these files are now being considered hostile to the Trump administration, the same Trump administration that ran on releasing the Epstein files. It's an interesting dynamic, and it begs many questions. I think the biggest question it begs, of course, is President Trump involved in the Epstein files? And I'm not talking about, is he listed in the documents? This is going to be, tens of thousands of documents or more related to Jeffrey Epstein. So the chances that Donald Trump isn't listed at all is zero. We all knew that. We all knew Trump was going to be listed in the documents in some way, some fashion. But the context of how he is listed in the files is really what's going to matter. So being in the Epstein files, just so we're clear, being listed in the Epstein files does not mean you're a rapist. It does not mean you molested underage girls. It does not mean you were buddy-buddy with Jeffrey Epstein. It means you could have potentially had connections to him, in the same way that people who may have opposed Hitler still had connections to Hitler. You can still have connections to Jeffrey Epstein and be opposed to the things Jeffrey Epstein was doing, or unaware of the things Jeffrey Epstein was doing. I'm not trying to run cover for Donald Trump. I'm just trying to paint the picture, the whole picture, because everyone wants to give you a window. Everyone wants to show you the left edge of the picture, or just the frame, or the bottom, or maybe just the middle. Maybe it's like you could vision it like a puzzle. Okay, and everyone's trying to show you the pieces that they want you to see. But really what you need to see is the whole picture. You need to hear the whole story. But what I'll say is the more Trump tries to push this off as just a Democrat hoax without giving a good, thorough explanation, the more he's going to look guilty. The more he allows this cover-up to continue, the more he's going to look guilty. And the more he refuses this, and the more he looks guilty, the more the Epstein files don't come out and then relieve him of this guilt if he is in fact not guilty. He's attacking himself on two fronts in that aspect. Trump's usually really good with the PR thing. He's good with the media. He knows how to handle himself. He's been doing it for a very long time. When you're in Trump's position, his economic position, and his position of being this world leader, this world builder, businessman, billionaire, you bump shoulders with a lot of people, and you learn how to talk to people. And it could be the media, or it could be a guy you're trying to close a deal with, or a world leader, or a guy you're trying to close a deal with. People are people. And the situations can change, and the situations can be different. But the thing about people is they don't change. People have certain human tendencies. People have certain psychological things that, once you understand the human brain, you could succeed at sales. You can succeed at politics. It does not matter, as long as you play everything at the same angle. Now, again, Trump being listed in the files would not mean he's guilty. Now, it's kind of funny because on NBC News, they had some Epstein survivors that they were speaking with, and they were doing a poll, and they asked these people, Um, you know, they try to basically just completely line this thing up. Oh, did you ever see Trump over on the old island there?
I do have to ask, and I know, and it's just something that I think we're compelled to at this moment, with the attention on President Trump, with these questions around a pardon. Did anybody see or hear of the president himself doing anything inappropriate as it related to Jeffrey Epstein?
No.
I do have to ask, and I know,
No. No, sure didn't. Now, I think that backfired. I'm assuming that backfired. NBC News, not known for being friendly to the Trump administration. So in my opinion, that was supposed to be a setup, and that did not go well. But it's anyone's guess. It's anyone's guess. Thomas Massey is leading the charge on this. Thomas Massey, big fan, with other people too. Marjorie Taylor Greene's jumping in on this, and several others. Boebert is jumping in on this as well. All these people are doing exactly what their constituency wants. All these people are doing exactly what the good people in this country want. There's not a good, sane human alive today in the United States, in the world, that looks at the Epstein files and thinks, yeah, I want that to be covered up. I don't want to know about global pedophile rings with ties to intelligence agencies of multiple countries. Our own intelligence agencies, and perhaps our greatest ally, Israel, right? Perhaps their intelligence agencies, and perhaps more. We all think of this thing as it was just one island, right? It was just one island. It was one guy and a couple of his friends, right? And they'd fly out to the island, a couple of his high-profile buddies. And there were some underage girls, but, there was just massages and maybe a little touching, okay? But that's not the scale that this is. The reason the cover-up exists is because of the ties to these high-profile people. The reason the cover-up exists is because what it would do to the world. It would shake everything to its core. Trump's not an idiot. When he was campaigning, he campaigned on it for a reason. He knew it had support. It still has support. The support hasn't died. And the more they try to move this into a non-issue, the more support they're going to lose. And you can try to cover it up. You can try to do other things. You can try to make the economy great. I love a great economy. Not more than I like taking down pedophiles. I'd pay more for bread if we had no pedophiles. It's not that I don't care about the economy. It's not that I don't care about 401ks. It's not that I don't like what's going on with the tariffs in these other countries. It's not that I don't like some of our foreign policy. Trump is potentially going to be the first president in my lifetime who is not only not getting into new wars, he is conclusively ending wars around the world. Sit down and ask yourself the last president who not only didn't start a war, but ended other people's wars. That didn't happen in my lifetime or your lifetime. And we can talk about all the good things. This is what Trump wants to do. Trump wants to talk about the good things. But we can do more than a couple things at a time here. With the size of the government, we better do a lot more than those things at once. I want a good economy. I want to end wars. And I want to take down pedophiles. The size of this government, we should be able to make it happen. And if we can't, that's one more reason that the government should shrink. All these agencies, all these intelligence agencies, these 3-letter agencies, make them all go away because obviously they're not worth it. What are we paying for? Do you feel comfortable being this in debt, paying this high taxes, having this high inflation? For what? What do you think you're getting out of this? This, of course, stems because the survivors have come together, and they say they're taking it into their own hands. The survivors are sick watching this, and who could blame them? I couldn't blame them. Could you imagine going through? First of all, just to be clear, none of us could imagine this. None of us. I'm presuming I shouldn't generalize. I haven't. Most people haven't gone through anything remotely this horrific. We're looking at it from the outside and thinking, this is disgusting. We need to take these people down. Imagine being on the inside of this. Imagine being one of the victims. Watching the Trump administration openly cover this up. How else would you feel? Here's the victims. Here it is. Here it is from their own mouth.
And let me announce now, several of us Epstein survivors have been discussing creating our own list of names. We know the names. Many of us were abused by them. Now, together as survivors, we will confidentially compile the names we all know were regularly in the Epstein world. And it will be done by survivors and for survivors. No one else is involved. Stay tuned for more details on that. Because history is watching, and so are the women who will come after us. Thank you.
I'll say this. I don't know. I don't know if we're going to get anything. You could call it pessimism if you'd like, or you can call it realism. I tend to lean on the side of it's realism. I don't like to look at optimism and pessimism because those are opinions. I like to look at realism. I like to look at truth. I like to look at facts. I like to predict based on that. I don't make predictions from an optimistic point of view. I don't make predictions from a pessimistic point of view. I make them from a logical point of view, a realism point of view. What do I actually think is going to happen? If the cover-up is at this scale, presumably because of the scale of the people involved, there's not a thing these girls are going to do. And it's not because they're not going to try. It's not because they don't want to. It's because I assure you, and I've said this in the past, and I do wonder about this, but I assure you, their lives are in danger. You think the Virginia Giuffre death was coincidental? We know what these people will do. We just talked yesterday about the AfD party in Germany. It's the second biggest political party in the nation of Germany. 6 of their candidates died during election season. Suddenly. 6 of them. Coincidentally, this party has been deemed basically a terrorist organization. Radical, extremist, right-wing, Nazi terrorist organization is how the German intelligence agencies feel about the AfD party. And 6 of their candidates died. Suddenly. That's not a coincidence. Virginia Giuffre being the star of this case, dying abruptly, is not an accident. It's not a coincidence. She was taken out. It was a hit. Every single one of these victims, their lives were in danger. I extend that all the way up to Trump. I said this with Bongino and Kash Patel. I think they went in with good intentions, but I'm telling you, there's shit happening at the top that we don't understand. And it's darker than we think it is, and it's deeper than we think it is. It's not as simple as bribery like people think it is. They didn't pay off Bongino. They threatened his family. They threatened him. They threatened Patel. They threatened Trump. There is a very specific reason why these files are not coming out. And it is exactly because of the profile of people that are involved in the files. You have to think about what kind of person would go head on into the deep state, knowing their lives are in danger, knowing their family's lives are in danger. Your own life is one thing, your family's life is another. And to continue to push, that takes a very special person, very bold person. That's why we praise the founders on this channel, because that's exactly what they were up against. Nothing new under the sun. You don't think the King of England was threatening the founders and their families? I guarantee you this is high profile stuff. You don't understand how deep this is, how dark this is. So my prediction of nothing coming out is not coming from pessimism. It's coming from realism. I want to talk about the Epstein files. Nancy Mace, you can say what you'd like about her, and I think criticisms of him or of her are extremely justifiable. But there is a picture of her leaving a meeting. I believe it was with the Epstein victims, and just listening to stories and getting more information. And I just, she's had stories come out in the past, something about her ex-husband or ex-boyfriend or something, and in-house camera footage of her naked walking around, and it was released and all this stuff. And that's terrible. I get it. Her approach to combating that was also terrible. I fully understand criticisms of Nancy Mace, 100%. But let me tell you this picture of her, and there was a video as well, leaving this meeting. This is completely authentic. This is not political theater. Whatever she heard in that room messed her up. And it clearly touched a nerve with whatever she's been going through. I'm just going to put the picture up real quick. This isn't fake. That's not fake. I don't know what she heard. I don't know what these victims went through. All we can do is speculate. All we can do is guess. We've heard some stories, but we haven't heard all of them, and we haven't heard everything, or we haven't heard anything really. What percentage of the story do you think we've heard? Less than 10? And that's horrific. And that's the stuff you heard. What's the other 90 look like? Pam Bondi said we had tens of thousands of hours of tape. Child pornography. Said the files were on her desk and then they disappeared. Nope. No files. It's a hoax. That's not incompetence. She didn't misplace the files. They didn't lose the footage. They didn't accidentally edit Epstein's cell tape. The one that didn't even exist, but then it existed, and then it was edited. None of this is an accident. None of it is incompetence. All of it is deep state. All of it is dark. All of it is scary. All of it is evil. I think we're operating under an assumption that is not nearly far enough. I think we think it's bad. We don't understand how bad it is. If you were watching the show long enough, we had Kevin on the show, and Kevin has read more books than I could. If I started today and read every day until I died, I would not have read as many books as Kevin has read. That guy is a freak of nature, and he retains all of it. Jokingly, I love Kevin. Jokingly, he's got autism, savant syndrome, or I don't know. He will cite the fucking page. I don't know how he does it. Oh, in this book on page 62, Kevin, how? Anyways, he was on the show, and we did a 2-part episode on adrenochrome. You think the Epstein stuff is gross? Sit and listen to Kevin talk about adrenochrome for 2 hours. I felt sick after the first episode. Physically ill. Literally. Like I wanted to throw up. We don't know how dark it is. The Epstein thing is so much worse than people think it is. And the reason for the cover-up is exactly the people that are involved. It's so high profile. The reason it's not coming out is because it would shake everything to its core. This is tearing it down to the studs territory. I love good economies. I like a 401k. I like the tariff policy. I like telling other countries in NATO they need to fucking fork up. I love all that. I love Trump going around the world and ending wars, not starting new wars, ending wars. I love all that. I'll gladly give Trump credit for all that. But if this whole presidency is going to be that, and we go another presidency allowing this to slide because we're too scared to put it out there, it's a failure. And I'm sorry, but he campaigned on it. And to go as far as to say the people who still want to release it are now hostile enemies of the Trump administration, get lost. That's crazy. They're hostile enemies because they want to continue your policy that you talked about on the campaign trail of releasing the Epstein files. Now they're hostile. People need to put this, you know what? I don't think we did this yet. I talked about this with Ryan. I have the good bad list on Epstein. And no, he's there. He's there. Donald Trump's on the bad list. And it was his idea. It was his idea to release it. He's the one running around in the campaign season telling everyone he's going to release the files. What happened? You think getting shot changes your mind a bit? You want to talk about putting the fear of God into somebody? How about an assassination attempt? Trump's not perfect. But I'll say this. I don't think Trump's not releasing them because Trump's in the files. That's my gut feeling. My gut feeling. I know Ryan has called him a child rapist and stuff, but my gut feeling on Trump, these files aren't getting released because he's complicit in crimes. He's not releasing them because he's not allowed to release them, to put it lightly. Anna Paulina Luna. There's a couple. I've always said this, and it always seems to be this way. But I can usually count the amount of people in government that I actually like on usually one hand, maybe two hands in a good year. Anna Paulina Luna is one of the good ones. She's on one of the hands for sure. And here she is saying exactly what I'm saying. Now, this is somebody way closer to everything than I am. I'm looking at it from 30,000 feet. She's looking at it from 1,000 feet.
Bigger than I think anyone anticipated. We are obviously going to be requesting the SARS reports from Treasury, and also too following up on that. There's some very rich and powerful people that need to go to jail. I think everyone's been frustrated as to why that hasn't happened before. But it is very much so a possibility that Jeffrey Epstein was an intelligence asset working for our adversaries. But also, too, I think the questions that we have is how much did our own government know about it? And so there's more to follow, and I'm sure you'll be hearing from the chairman momentarily. But I do applaud the victims from coming forward, because we heard from a woman who was as young as 14 years old when she was victimized multiple times by Jeffrey Epstein. So that's hard to hear.
You signed a discharge petition as the discharge petition?
I think that the files will probably be released prior. I don't know why Comer hasn't. I think that he should do it, so it wouldn't even have to come to a vote. But I mean, obviously, I've been a huge advocate, even when I was the only one in Congress calling for the release of this file. So I think I'd be happy to, yes. Thank you.
What do they call for the victims? Do they want those files released?
The victims want information to be out there, but they don't want their personal information, I think, for good reason to be out there. So I think from the get-go, even the Attorney General has stated that there's victim information that you have to make sure that's private, being that some of the victims also, too, are as young as 14, that's child pornography. No, thank
That's gross. Children as young as 14. But of course there would be children as young as 14. And of course this isn't a surprise to me because like I said, we had Kevin on the show talking about things you wouldn't fucking believe. Do you understand what adrenochrome is? I don't mean to like mix topics, but for people who don't understand what adrenochrome is, there is an idea, and we never got into the science of this. I don't know if this is true, but there's enough people behind the scenes who believe in this, who do this. It's disgusting. There is an idea that blood that has been excited from high stress, high trauma situations can give you some form of benefit in some way, whether it's a high, whether it's a health benefit, whether it enriches your blood or maybe it's purely satanic. Again, we didn't 100% get into all the specifics of it. But what I do know is this. Some of the stories I heard, we're talking about underage kids who were raped and tortured so their blood could be right for these certain people, the people who would use the adrenochrome from the blood. It's disgusting. And when you hear that, you're not surprised to find out a 14-year-old was molested by Jeffrey Epstein. Not even tortured, molested. Now you could say it's psychological torture, sure. There was he covered a story. There was a man who kept impregnating girls so he could abort them. So he could use the parts from the aborted fetuses. There is evil, satanic shit going on that people don't believe. It's a conspiracy. That's what you're told. That's what you're told. It's a conspiracy. Everything's a conspiracy because people don't want to believe it. Because I think to some degree, your moral fibers won't let you believe it. Because you probably watching this are probably a decent person. Maybe not perfect, but you're probably a decent person. And you can't imagine a world where anybody would do this because you're thinking of it from your mind, in your brain, in your soul, in your spirit. But there are people who would do this. There's people who do this. That's why I come at this from a realism point of view. And some people come at it from optimism and pessimism. I'm coming at it from reality. We're not getting a list. We're not getting files. We never were. Too many people involved. We're too high profile. It's not coming out. It would shake up too many things. It would shake up governments. It would shake up economies. It would shake up global enterprises, businesses, multinational corporations, CEOs, CFOs, CCOs, COOs, congressmen, senators, representatives, presidents, princes, royalty, prime ministers, bankers. This is deep. It's not coming out. It's never coming out. It's a rough way to start a show. I apologize. But this stuff is so serious. We can't just... I love doing a fun show. I love having a good time. I love laughing it up with Ryan. But not everything's always sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes shit's real. With that said, hopefully the second half of the show will be much better. RFK Jr. He's one of the bright spots of the Trump administration for sure. Him, Tulsi Gabbard, definite bright spots. And he was on the show with Bill Maher, and this really is one of those things where it's just like if you just follow the logic trail, RFK Jr. is spot on, and people can run around and call him anti-science and all this shit. But again, follow the logic trail, trust your instincts, trust your senses. This is spot on.
There's 25% of Americans who believe that they know somebody who was killed by a COVID vaccine. Killed. 25% of Americans, 52% of Americans believe that the vaccines are causing injuries, including death. 52%. If you look at the clinical trial studies, the actual studies that were done that were released of the Pfizer vaccine, Moderna has not released it. If you look at the Pfizer vaccine, there were 22,000 people in the placebo group, 22,000 people who got the actual vaccine. And the people who got the vaccine had a 23% higher death rate from all causes at the end of that study.
But that could not be the disease itself?
No, well,
because we know that
if it is, then the vaccine doesn't work, does it?
Well, it's certainly... Well, no, that's not...
Spot on. Well, maybe it's not 23%. Maybe the vaccine's not causing it. Maybe the virus caused the death. Okay, but these people were vaccinated. So then what the fuck did the vaccine do? That's a fair question from RFK. If the vaccine was safe and effective, why did 23% more people die who were vaccinated? And if it's not from the vaccine, it obviously didn't protect you from the virus. But that rebuttal, that response from RFK Jr. can only come when you're a logical thinking person. It does not come from the scientific community. It comes from the logic community. The people who think clearly. If the whole reason you got the vaccine was so you wouldn't die from the virus, why did more people die from the virus with the vaccine? Unless, of course, the vaccine was the cause of the death. Either way, the vaccine obviously wasn't very good. Because it either killed you or didn't protect you from dying. But it doesn't matter because Big Pharma got big checks. Another failure of the Trump administration, Operation Warp Speed, and he's still running around. I'd be okay with Operation Warp Speed being a failure and Trump coming in the second administration in his second term and saying, you know what? Operation Warp Speed was a failure, but he didn't. He doubled down on it because Trump can't admit when he's wrong. Operation Warp Speed was a huge success. No, it wasn't. Why was it a huge success? Because the vaccine wasn't very good and the virus wasn't very deadly. That was a solid response. Sydney Sweeney, she apparently can't do anything without getting backlash. She very simply did another commercial because keep in mind she's an actress and she does commercials. When you're an actress, you act a lot, which means you play roles of characters which you are not necessarily in real life. That's what acting is. So sometimes an actor pretends to be a pirate. Sometimes they pretend to be a wizard. Sometimes they pretend to be a ballerina. And the reason I'm setting that up is because Sydney Sweeney was in an ad for Jimmy Choo. And if that's how you say it, I don't know. I'm not a whatever. And she's getting hate because she's not actually a ballerina. Again, actress. That's what they do. Here's it's not the whole ad, but it's certainly worth looking at. But apparently, that's enough to piss people off nowadays. Now, if you're scratching your head wondering why that would piss somebody off, it's because she has become the poster child of the right wing right now. Recently, in recent weeks, ever since the jeans ad, when people came out and said she was Nazi because simply she had blonde hair and blue eyes. And of course, she's a registered Republican in Florida. One of the wins of the Trump administration has been the abrupt switch of the culture. Because our American culture was downhill, about as downhill as it could get. We were putting trannies on beer cans. It was about as bad as it could get. And it's come back quite a bit. It was a bit of a turnaround for sure, but there's still a push. We can't stop. We can't let up. We can't think Trump's in office and everything's okay. You have to push. You have to drive. You have to keep doing the things that got him there in the first place. We have to keep pushing the, if you want, air quotes, counterculture. We cannot allow ourselves to go back. The American people, the average American person, does not want Lizzo in a ballerina ad, or in a Nike ad, or in an American Eagle ad. The average American person likes attractive women. What is an attractive woman? Moderately in shape, obtainable. It's pretty girl next door look. Not a bitch. Okay, not to just throw around bad words. I get it. The bar is not very high, if I'm honest. Be approachable. Be nice. Don't be massively obese. Like these are not high standards. These are not high bars. It's what the average person wants. It's biological. It's ingrained inside of you. You should not feel ashamed for it. Don't get pushed. Don't let them tell you you're a bad person because you don't think Lizzo is attractive. That's natural. That's your call. That's your opinion. And if you're the kind of guy who thinks she is attractive, go for it, dude. That's all you. But we're talking about averages. I'm talking about the normal person. The everyday run-of-the-mill guy goes to work, some blue-collar job, probably working with his hands doing something. Works a very long week. He comes home, he drinks beer, and he gets to watch an ad with Sydney Sweeney in it. And you know what? His smile is ear to ear. The last thing he wants is that beer can that he's drinking to have some dude with a wig on it. Which brings me to the next point. I think the name is Sarah McBride, which obviously is not their birth name since it's a dude pretending to be a woman who is in Congress. And she thinks that you are weird. The average Republican is weird. But don't take my word for it. Listen to it from his very lips.
We will not take a lecture on decorum from a party that incited an insurrection. I appear to live rent-free in the minds of some of my Republican colleagues. I wish that they would spend even a fraction of the time that they spend thinking about me, thinking about how to lower the costs for American families. I wish they would spend a fraction of the time that they spend thinking about me, figuring out how to make government actually work better, rather than making it work worse in order to prove that government can't work. They are obsessed with culture war issues. The Republican Party is obsessed with culture war issues. It is weird and it is bizarre. And the American people deserve serious legislators, serious elected officials who are focused on bringing people together to deliver real results for the American people, not to play games and not to engage in schoolyard taunts.
You're weird. Why are you obsessed with the culture war? This is exactly why we're obsessed with the culture war, for the record. And why are we obsessed with the culture war? I think it was Andrew Breitbart said that politics was downstream of culture. Man, did he nail that way before everyone else. The reason is because we live every day in culture. We don't live every day in politics. Let me clarify that. All of us are affected by politics, but all of us don't see it every day. All of us live inside of culture. Everything you consume is culture. Everything you consume is culture. This podcast is culture. A movie that you watch is culture. A commercial that you see is culture. The radio you listen to is culture. The type of music you listen to is culture. The type of clothes you wear is culture. The type of car you drive is culture. The type of place you work is culture. The people around you are culture. Everything is culture. That's why it's attacked the most. It's easy to play politics when you control the culture. That's why the culture war is so important. That's why it's so important to drive against bad culture. My opinion, bad culture. The average person's opinion, bad culture. We are not the weird people. I did not cut off my penis and put a wig and a dress on. That's weird. You are weird. I'm a normal person. By everyone's standard of normal, from now until the beginning of time and until the end of time, it will always be more normal to be me than to be that person. It will always be more normal for you to be you than this person to pretend to be a woman. It will always be more normal. This isn't being mean for the sake of being mean. I don't care what people choose to do with their lives. That's not really my particular thing. But when you're shoving it into everyone else's face, when you're injecting it into the culture, which affects everybody because you live in the culture, that's when it matters. It does matter. The culture is more important than politics. That's why we cover it on this program more frequently than we talk about political things specifically. But they all tie into each other because politicians know how important culture is. And this person is lying to you because they want you to think that only Republicans are weird because they think about culture. Everyone thinks about culture. That's why everyone wants to control the culture, because it's the most important thing you can do. Speaking of culture, reportedly, streamer Kai Cenat turned down a massive deal with Nike, specifically because apparently, this is the report. I obviously don't know this, but apparently because he was asked to never mention Jesus Christ. And that was a non sequitur. The buck stops here. I'm not taking that deal. The money's not good enough for me to give up my soul. Do you understand? Do you get how important that is? To have Jesus in your life when that is important to you? That's more important than any amount of money, especially when you've already made money. Kai Cenat's the world's biggest streamer currently. He's made a lot. So he doesn't need your Nike money. Would it be nice to have? Sure, but I'm not selling my soul for it. This is a big deal when you talk about culture. I've said this for a while, and I've always said that I even internally feel slightly hypocritical about this because I personally am not extremely religious. But I understand fully that the farther this nation has gotten away from Christianity, the worse the culture has gotten. The mental health crisis is on the rise. The more we get away from God, that's not a coincidence. That's because people aren't living holy lives. I'm saying that as somebody who's not religious. So imagine what Jesus Christ means to somebody who is extremely religious. And I don't know Kai Cenat, he might not be extremely religious, but he's religious enough to know that his soul isn't worth Nike money. It's worth more than that. So if this story is true, again, this is just going off of reports, and I can only go off of reports. Because I am like you at home. I am just operating off of, I'm on a chair right now inside of my house. I don't have super secret intelligence and in-depth. I don't have any of this. I'm going off of reports. Which means all of you can do exactly what I do. And all of you can learn exactly the same things that I learn. Because all of this information is available, and all you have to do is try. And it's amazing when you look into this stuff every day of your life. It's amazing what the things you find out, the things you learn, and the way it changes your worldview. I think my worldview, in general, the foundation of it has remained the same. But I will say there have been things that have, I love this phrase, turned out to be true. They were always true. We're just acknowledging them now. There are things that turned out to be true that completely caught me off guard. But you know what? When you go forward, when you change your perception going forward, because you know, I was wrong about that. What else could I be wrong about? Let's look into it. That changes the way you look at things. That changes the way you learn things. I like this. I like this move from Kai Cenat, though. This is good. Apparently, the Trump administration struck down a drug trafficking boat from Venezuela. There seems to be torn perspectives on this. I don't want to be a fence sitter by any stretch of the imagination. Let me say this. Is an act of war, an airstrike, justifiable against someone who isn't committing an act of war? No. But can you make a case that drug trafficking is in fact not just as simple as a crime and it is in fact an act of war? Because what's involved in that? It's an invasion. It's an invasion on our land, on our territory. Is that an act of war? If someone invades your country, is that an act of war? And is it justifiable to respond to an act of war with an act of war? I'm not as torn up about this. Honestly, I think this is less damning than striking Iran. Because when we struck Iran, it was because we were told that they had nuclear weapons, and we must certainly not allow them to have nuclear weapons. And certainly our greatest ally, Israel, could not allow them to have nuclear weapons. So, of course, we have to strike their nuclear facilities. But as long as we give them enough notice so they could clear out their nuclear facilities before we bomb it, yes, that would be fine. But they weren't threatening us, in my opinion. Did anyone sitting at home really think Iran was an immediate threat and must be dealt with? I didn't. Do you think people invading your country to traffic drugs that kill your families, traffic children, traffic slaves into the country, sex slaves, very much alive today, slavery? Do you think that's bad? Do you think that's an invasion? Do you think that's worth an act of war? I think that's more tolerable than the strike on Iran. I'm not completely against this, if I'm honest. You know what, Trump? You want to go ahead and airstrike drug cartel? That's fine. That's fine. I'll let that slide. But I'm going to need to see those files. I'm going to need to see those Epstein files. Joy Reid. Joy Reid doesn't know. There was a clip about Joy Reid. I guess I could play it, but Joy Reid apparently doesn't know that humans can heal themselves. She was on her, I think she has a podcast, talking about how She doesn't believe Trump was shot because his ear healed. I don't want to say she's a stupid person because I think that's too easy. But she's a stupid person. You know how like if you cut yourself, your wound heals, and sometimes you cut yourself really bad and you have to get stitches and your wound heals. And you know how like some parts of your body heal better than other parts of your body. And you know how like has anyone ever seen 50 Cent? He got shot 9 times in the face. Does he look like a man who has 9 holes in his face? People heal. They have an incredible ability to heal themselves. Joy Reid's a moron. I'm not even going to play the clip. She said Trump wasn't shot because his ear looks like an ear still. Apparently, she thought the whole thing should have been blown off of his body. He should have had no ear. The bullet should have put a giant hole in the side of his head where his ear should be. He should have looked like Voldemort's nose, but on the side of his head where his ear was. I don't know what she thinks a ear hole should look like. I don't know if she's ever seen the size of the bullet, not the round, the bullet that comes out of an AR-15. It's not big. It's barely more than a 22 round. It's not sizable. The size of the hole that would have put in your ear, it's a piercing. I know people with gauged ears way bigger than that hole would have been. She's an idiot. She doesn't live in reality. Or, let's try this one. She's fucking lying to you. Joy Reid, yes, ears can heal. Obviously, that's stupid. Amish ADD. I think we should end on Amish ADD. Weirdly, Theo Vaughn had an Amish guy on. For people who haven't heard this before, the Amish community has like super low rates of like autism and other, you know, I don't know what you would consider that, but mental things and other viruses and diseases and stuff always affect the Amish community at like way lesser levels. And people are always surprised to figure this out. But it's simple. If you look at the way they live, the way they operate, it's how people used to live and operate before autism existed. They're not massively injected with vaccinations. They don't eat poison food. They don't drink poison water. They go out, they live their lives, they work hard. They're not addicted to electronics and screens. Their brains aren't fried by algorithms. They live fairly holistic lives on the whole, on average, for the most part. And there was always a stigma against them, like they're kind of weird, and whatever. I get it. Maybe they take it a little far. Maybe there's a comfortable middle somewhere. I don't know. The point is, something they're doing is different than something we're doing, and we have different results. Maybe it's worth exploring. Theo Vaughn, he's something else. I gotta tell you. But here's. I'm just gonna play the clip.
Do they have ADD in the Amish community?
So I don't even do you know what is ADD? I'm not even quite sure.
Oh wow, ADD. It's like, let me think. You ever have that feeling like when somebody's tickling you or whatever, kind of?
Yeah.
And you're like, you just can't even handle it.
Yeah.
It's like that feeling, but it's like in your brain, kind of when you're trying to pay attention. So it's like you're paying attention doesn't work,
Oh. No, I don't think anyone has ADD that I know of. I hope not, because that would be too fun to have.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I think it's like, yeah, you get to change your mind without even doing it,
So if you drive a car, if you have ADD, so can you focus on the road, or you're like looking over to the ditch and then this car and the guy in the passenger seat? Or...
I think it gets a little bit testy for some people, like it's too much, Yeah, pull that up. Do the Amish have ADD? Pull that up. Let's get a gander at that. That's a great question.
Yeah. I've never heard of ADD before.
Then you must not have it, brother.
Yeah.
The Amish do experience ADD, but reported rates are noticeably lower than in the general population, and diagnosis practices may differ significantly due to culture.
So there's that same fact is true with, like I said, with autism. It's like such a crazy low rate, and I don't remember what the rate. It's like 1 in 4 Americans have autism now, or something like that, or American children have autism. It's some crazy high number. Like, it's high. And like the Amish rate is so much lower. And you can look at all the differences, and some of it could be, diagnostic ability and diagnostic styles, and maybe some things are going undiagnosed. I'm not going to completely eliminate that, but a lot of it is probably the fact that they're not poisoning their bodies from the time they're born. Maybe try that. Maybe think that's an approach. Maybe think that's a possibility. And maybe that's just me. Maybe that's just me who thinks that. I don't know. I could be alone in this. That's fine. I'll be alone. That's perfectly fine with me. That doesn't scare me. Being alone on an island in some mental capacity does not bother me. That just means that I'm willing to stand up for things I believe in, and everybody else falls in line. That's fine. You can do that. But there's clearly something different between the Amish and the average everyday American. Like I said, they obviously have different results than us. Look, this goes back to RFK Jr. a little bit. You can look at this logically. It's very simple. 23% of people, I think was the number, who got the vaccine were dying, and whether or not the study because of the vaccine or because the vaccine wasn't doing a good job, quite frankly, it becomes an irrelevant piece of information, because either way, what's the point of the vaccine? And then look at the Amish community, and you can take that same logic and apply it and say, listen, the Amish are doing this, 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 and this very different than us. And they have this, this, and this very different result. Is it worth looking into? That's all I'm wondering. Is it worth looking into? Is it the vaccines? Is it the poison food? Something has to be doing it. Something has to be causing a change. Something has to be making something different. We're living in the same country, in theory, right? We're all in the same borders. It's not in the air. We can rule the air out. The air's fine. Maybe a little smoggy in some places, but the air's mostly fine. We're all drinking water, but maybe there is coming from a well, and ours are coming from lead pipes. Okay, so maybe the lead pipes are poisonous. Maybe the lead pipes are causing it. I'm not saying it's only vaccines. Maybe it's lead pipes. I don't know. Maybe it's because the food we're eating. We eat a lot of ultra high processed foods. They don't eat a lot of ultra high processed foods. Let's look at that. Now you look at that, and then you say, check that off. We're ultra injecting our children with vaccines at very young ages. They are not. Is that doing it? Look into that. Actually look into it. Don't say you looked into it. Do it for real. Because the scientific community loves to say, we don't know what's causing autism, but we know it's not vaccines. If you don't know what's causing it, you don't know what's not causing it. Big Pharma is always very... the science, air quotes, is always very sure they come out and protect Big Pharma. Always. Those two go hand in hand all the time. All I'm saying about the Amish, you can say what you want. You can make fun of them if you want. That's fine. I think some of the fun is justified. Maybe drive a car and don't vaccinate your children. I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is. I don't pretend to know what the right answer is. But I don't think we should go through life assuming we know everything. Because I think that's a dangerous way to live life. Don't go through life assuming you're a god. I think that's a much better, much improved way to live your life. But that could just be me. I don't know. I appreciate everyone watching the video. I know it's a very different feel than what we're used to. Normally Ryan's here and we're having a good time. But if you enjoyed everything, if you enjoyed the format today, if you enjoyed what we talked about, I appreciate any love. Do all the likes, do all the shares, reposting. Rumble, you can repost, by the way, if you're a Rumble. If you're not watching on Rumble, I question why you're not watching on Rumble. It's the free speech alternative to YouTube, so make sure you get on Rumble. Sign up an account. It's free. Download the app. It's free. If you want to go premium, I recommend it. If you want to go premium, if you don't, there's no obligation. You can still do it for free. You might miss out on some of the premium content, but you can still do it for free. You can watch all your favorite people on Rumble, uncensored, because Rumble is not going to censor us. They've made that very clear. And they have a history of backing us. They have a history of standing up for free speech. They've said fuck you to governments. Those are my kind of people. So go on Rumble, give us a like, give us a repost, comment, do all the things. Really appreciate that. Hopefully we're back tomorrow with Ryan. Usually this is when he's shouting about the greatest podcast in history, but thanks everyone.